Jake Paul just threw a massive $60 million offer on the table to face Canelo Alvarez, and the boxing world is losing its mind. Critics, fans, and fighters are in total meltdown because this shocking move could flip the entire sport upside down.
It was so good, you couldn't turn it down. It was 4 fights. It's big money. It's guaranteed money. Whereas Jake Paul would have been 1, and then where does he go from there? So I think it was a real thing.
Well, it's a fascinating thing because I think Canelo comes out smelling like roses because they put it out, and I think it was leaked by the Riyadh season side to put it out to try to, I don't know, ruin the surprise, ruin the announcement. Because, I mean, even after the fact, Turkey was telling ESPN that he was putting out false information to try to...
Jake Paul had a signed contract. Canelo Alvarez's signature was on it, and then, in less than 24 hours, the whole thing was dead. What happened next shook boxing harder than any punch thrown in 2025, because Canelo walked away from that fight to protect his legacy, and then spent the next 12 months destroying it himself. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why the boxing world is melting down, and why the fight everyone said would never happen is now closer than it's ever been.
You know, to try to distract people, but ultimately they saw the reaction, and the reaction wasn't positive, right? They didn't want this.
Yeah.
His fan base did not want this. And so he could have gone the route of, hey, I'm going to shut this kid up once and for all. He's making a mockery of the sport. He beat up a legend. I'm going to kill him. And as we said, like, I asked you the question, I think it was last week. I asked you the question, like, what if... I'm asking you this question. Obviously, Canelo Alvarez was going to do whatever he wanted with Jake Paul. It was up to him whether this fight goes 3 rounds or 7 rounds or 2 rounds or 1 round or 10 rounds. It was up to him. There are...
If you clicked this, you already know the Jake Paul and Canelo story has been one of the messiest sagas in recent boxing history. Most people think they know how this went. Paul wanted the fight, Canelo laughed it off, and that was that. YouTuber gets rejected by the real boxer. End of story. But here's what this channel is going to show you. That is not how this story went, not even close. What actually happened is more stunning, more complicated, and more embarrassing for the people involved than anything you've read in a headline. A contract was signed. ESPN confirmed the deal. Posters were being prepared for a Tuesday announcement, and then, in the space of one evening, a $300 million offer from Riyadh season landed, and Canelo vanished. We're breaking this down in 3 parts. First, what actually happened in those negotiations, and what Paul's team says ended the fight. Second, what Canelo did with his year instead, and how badly it backfired. And third, the twist that nobody saw coming. Why the fight that fell through in February 2025 may be the most logical fight in boxing heading into 2027.
The gap between them is astronomical, but I don't believe for a second that he wasn't sincere in his intent to sign to fight Jake Paul because of the money. He's always said it, what? Payday, payday, payday. He has always said, 100%. Just pay me the most money and I will come fight for you. Even Eddie Hearn himself, who Eddie adores Canelo, he's his biggest fan. He has said he has no loyalty to anyone. His loyalty is to whoever is going to pay him the most amount of money. And so this idea in the aftermath that people are like, thank you, Canelo. I see these boxing...
To understand why this deal mattered, you have to understand where both fighters were at the start of 2025. Jake Paul had just beaten Mike Tyson in November 2024. The fight drew 64 million concurrent streams on Netflix, a record. Whatever you think of the quality of that bout, that number is real. Paul had become one of the biggest attractions in the sport, with an 11-1 record and a platform no traditional boxer could match. Canelo Alvarez was boxing's highest-paid star, ESPN's number 5 pound-for-pound fighter, the unified super middleweight champion holding the WBA, WBC, and IBF belts. He was 34 years old, still active, still dangerous, and looking for his next big payday. Sources at ESPN reported that the two sides were finalizing a deal for a fight on May 3rd in Las Vegas, Cinco de Mayo weekend, the most sacred date on the boxing calendar for Canelo. Netflix would broadcast it. The announcement was set for Tuesday, February 11th. And then, Turkey Al-Sheikh made his move. And this is where the story gets complicated. Now, most people covered the Canelo-Paul breakdown as a simple story. Big promoter outbids YouTuber. Deal falls through, move on. But here's the part of this story that Paul's team did not want to stay quiet about, and they made sure it didn't. Jake Paul posted a video to social media showing a contract with Canelo Alvarez's signature on it. He showed fight posters. He named the date, Tuesday, February 11th, when the announcement was supposed to drop. ESPN's Mike Coppinger confirmed the deal was being finalized. Eddie Hearn, one of boxing's top promoters, told Boxing News magazine the Jake Paul fight was done. Then, in a single evening, Al Sheikh announced Canelo had signed a 4-fight deal with Riyadh Season. Canelo would fight William Skull in May, on the exact same Cinco de Mayo weekend, then Crawford in September, with 2 more fights in 2026. Paul's company, Most Valuable Promotions, released a statement saying they had been operating in good faith and were blindsided. Paul went further. He claimed Riyadh Season threatened to pull Canelo's $300 million contract if he fought Paul first, that he was on the 1-yard line, as he described it on the Ariel Helwani show. In Paul's words, they threatened to pull his $300 million contract. He was going to fight me. Al Sheikh responded to this claim with a string of laughing emojis. Both sides are telling it differently, but the facts don't lie. A contract was signed, ESPN confirmed the deal, and Canelo walked away inside 24 hours. Whatever the reason, the fight was killed. But that's not even the most important part of this story.
And this is where the real story, the one that reframes everything, finally comes out. Because here's what happened to both fighters after that deal collapsed. Jake Paul went on to bank $60 million across 2 fights in 2025. According to Sportico's top 100 highest paid athletes list, Paul tied Neymar at number 30 with $60 million in total income. He fought Anthony Joshua in December in Miami on Netflix and walked away from a brutal KO loss with more respect than he'd ever had. Joshua dropped him with a shot that fractured his jaw in 2 places. Paul posted his x-ray from a hospital bed and immediately called out Canelo. He wasn't done fighting. He wasn't scared. He was asking for more. Now look at what Canelo did with his year. He fought William Skull in May 2025, a fight so passive, so devoid of urgency, that it set a record for the fewest total punches thrown by a champion in a 12-round fight. Canelo earned a unanimous decision, and the boxing world watched in disbelief. Then came the Crawford fight in September. Terence Crawford, a former welterweight, moving up 2 weight classes, outboxed Canelo in Las Vegas and handed him a clear decision loss. Canelo earned $137 million across both fights in 2025, making him the 2nd highest paid athlete in the world behind Cristiano Ronaldo. He earned more than LeBron James and Lionel Messi, and he lost to a welterweight. The man who walked away from Jake Paul to protect his legacy went on to deliver the worst performances of his career. Crawford retired in December 2025. The rematch Canelo wanted was gone, and Paul, jaw wired shut, recovering from surgery, was already plotting his return. But here's what nobody is connecting right now, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's the twist that changes everything about this story. When Canelo said no to Jake Paul in February 2025, Turki Al-Sheikh fired back immediately. Canelo only fights real fighters. That was the official line. YouTuber, not a real fighter, not worthy. 12 months later, Crawford is retired. Canelo has a September 2026 date in Saudi Arabia, a Mexico against the world event, but nothing locked in after that. Paul is targeting a return to the ring in late 2026 or early 2027, recovering from jaw surgery and rebuilding. According to analysis from multiple boxing outlets, a Paul versus Canelo fight at cruiserweight could generate between $150 million and $200 million per fighter. The size and strength advantage at that weight shifts dramatically in Paul's favor. At 200 pounds, Canelo has never competed. And with Crawford gone, the legitimate elite opponents who can generate anywhere near that kind of money have disappeared from Canelo's calendar. What once looked like a novelty fight the sport didn't need now looks like the biggest financial opportunity left in boxing. The man who used the real fighters line as a shield just spent a full year watching his edge over Jake Paul shrink. Crawford exposed Canelo's limitations. Joshua gave Paul a war and broke his jaw, and Paul kept calling for more. The gap between real boxer and YouTuber got smaller with every performance in 2025. And here's the kicker. According to Turki Alashik's own track record, he has shown zero loyalty to any fighter who makes his events look bad. Canelo made Riyadh's season look ordinary against Skull. He made it look worse against Crawford. The same machine that bought Canelo away from Paul may be the one that pushes him toward Paul in 2027.
Here's where we land on this. Jake Paul offered Canelo Alvarez the kind of money most fighters never see. A signed contract, a Netflix broadcast, Cinco de Mayo in Las Vegas. And Canelo walked away to protect a legacy he spent the next 12 months chipping away at himself. Paul earned $60 million, banked 64 million Netflix streams, got knocked out by Joshua, and came back asking for Canelo from a hospital bed. The man they called a YouTuber is now being seriously discussed as the biggest available fight in boxing for the back half of the decade. The boxing world is melting down because the story they told, YouTuber gets humbled, real boxer goes back to real fights, didn't happen. The real boxer underperformed, the YouTuber kept climbing. Here's the question this whole saga comes down to. Did Canelo make a massive mistake turning down Jake Paul in 2025, or does he still have enough left to end this whole circus once and for all in 2027? Drop your take below. If you want the real story on everything happening in boxing before it makes mainstream media, hit subscribe.